All right, let's jump right in. Today we're going to unpack a really fascinating ancient story from the Pali Canon. It's known as the parable of the quail. And, it starts out super simple, just a conversation. But it ends up revealing something really profound and honestly kind of counterintuitive about what's really holding us back in life.
So our story kicks off with a monk by the name of Udāyi. He's just sitting there, reflecting, and he is just washed over by this wave of gratitude. He's thinking about his teacher, the Buddha, and just how much better his life has gotten. How many of these little bits of suffering have just, well, disappeared?
And this feeling of gratitude is what sparks the whole mystery of this story. It brings up a question that pretty much flips common sense on its head. What if the tiniest, most insignificant things we're attached to are actually our strongest prisons?
So what was Udāyi so happy about? It wasn't some huge, dramatic life change. Nope. He was thinking about something incredibly simple, the habits he'd managed to give up around eating.
He's remembering how he used to eat in the afternoon and then again at night. And when the Buddha first suggested, hey, maybe drop the afternoon meal, Udāyi admits he was pretty distressed about it. He was thinking, but that's when we get all the good food from people. It felt like a huge loss. But out of respect for his teacher, he did it. He let it go. And the exact same thing happened later with the nighttime meal. And again, even though he resisted, he let it go, and the result was this incredible feeling of peace.
Now, the Buddha overhears Udāyi's story, and he uses it as a teaching moment. And this brings us to the first way of looking at this text, the most straightforward, obvious truth right there on the surface.
He says, look, Udāyi, you managed to do it. But some people, when you ask them to let go of something that small, they just totally resist. They complain, why is he making such a fuss over this tiny little thing? They dig their heels in, refuse to let go, and they end up losing faith in the whole path.
And right here is where he brings in this amazing metaphor. He talks about a small quail, a tiny little bird, that gets caught by what the Pali text calls a putilataya bandhanena. If you just do a standard modern translation, that comes out as a bond of rotten vine. It sounds so weak, right? Flimsy, something you should be able to snap in an instant.
But for that little bird, that rotten vine isn't weak at all. To the quail, it's a strong, firm, totally unbreakable bond that's going to lead to it getting captured or worse. The simple takeaway here seems obvious. Even an attachment that looks like nothing from the outside can be a serious prison if you don't have the will to break it. But that's not the whole story, not even close.
Because you see, if we really dig into the original language, something way more profound starts to bubble up. We can actually go beyond that surface translation and get to the very root of the words themselves, uncovering this hidden, deeper layer to the story.
So the real key here is just one word, bandhanam. A modern translation will give you bond or fetter, like a chain, something that's holding you back. But if you go deeper to the word's ancient roots, using this really cool linguistic insight called niruti, it means something totally different. It means the foundation. The very thing that underpins everything, that holds us up. And just like that, a simple story about a vine becomes this incredible insight into what we're building our entire lives on.
And that, of course, raises a really fascinating question. How in the world can a weak, rotten vine be a foundation? I mean, that feels like a total contradiction, right? A foundation is supposed to be strong, stable. A rotten vine is, well, the opposite of that. This paradox is the key to the entire teaching.
To help us solve this puzzle, the text gives us another powerful animal metaphor. It asks us to put the tiny quail right next to a huge, magnificent war elephant. First, just picture that little quail all tangled up in its rotten vine. The text is super explicit here. It calls this a strong bond, a balavam bandhanam. The thing that seems the weakest is actually described as the strongest.
Okay, now picture a king-ish war elephant, a massive, powerful animal tied up with these thick, heavy-duty leather straps. The text calls this a weak bond, an abalam bandhanam. The chains that look the strongest are called the weakest. So, what is going on here?
So here's the crucial insight. The strength of a bond has absolutely nothing to do with the thing itself. It's not about the vine, it's not about the leather straps. The strength is 100% determined by our own mind, by our clinging, our attachment, our stubborn refusal to let go. The elephant knows it can break those straps, and it's willing to. The quail believes it can't, so it doesn't even bother to try.
And to make this crystal clear, the story then shifts from animals to people, giving us two parables that just perfectly illustrate this whole idea in human terms.
And this just nails the point home, doesn't it?
We have a poor man who has almost nothing, just a broken-down shack and one cooking pot. He sees the peace that a simple monastic life could bring, but he just can't bring himself to leave the little he has. His bond is strong. Then you have a super wealthy man, with gold and fields and servants, the whole shebang. He sees that same peace, and he's able to walk away from everything to go find it. His bond to all that incredible wealth is considered weak. The poor man's single pot is his rotten vine, but he clings to it like it's his entire foundation.
So what's the one single factor that decides whether a bond is strong or weak, whether it's a prison or just a temporary roadblock? It's just one thing: how much we identify with it, cling to it, and refuse to let it go.
Okay, so the text has shown us the problem in this really brilliant way. But it doesn't just leave us there, it also lays out the solution. It describes the step-by-step path of letting go, of untangling ourselves from even the most subtle of these rotten vines.
This path starts right where you'd think, with everyday sensory pleasures. But then it gets way more subtle. The training is to then let go of the good stuff that comes from practice. First that initial joy, then the deep bliss, and then even that profound peace of equanimity. It keeps going, all the way to letting go of our attachment to huge concepts like infinite space or consciousness itself. The goal is this radical release from clinging to any experience, good or bad, until there's nothing left to hold on to.
And at the very end of this incredible explanation, the Buddha turns back to Udāyi and asks him this simple, powerful question. He's making it absolutely clear. The point isn't to trade big attachments for smaller, more manageable ones. The goal is total freedom from all of them.
And that really just leaves us with a question to think about in our own lives, doesn't it? What's that one seemingly small, insignificant thing, a habit, a belief, an old grudge, a minor comfort that you're clinging to? What's the thing you defend by saying, oh, come on, it's just this one little thing, not realizing that it might just be the very foundation of your own prison? What is your rotten vine?